Have questions? We have answers. Introducing Ford Tech Talks, an in-depth conversation with Ford's greatest minds as they share their insights into the transformation of the mobility industry. Explore Ford's next-generation products, services, and more. Ford Tech Talks, the drivers behind the future of mobility.
Thanks for joining us today on Ford Tech Talks, where we sit down with the drivers behind the future of mobility. I'm your host, Greg Amaral, technical recruiter here at Ford Motor Company. Today, we'll give an inside look into Ford's perspective on talent and technology. We are in the midst of the biggest change the mobility industry has ever seen. Just as cars changed the world over the last century, connected vehicles are radically reshaping how we live. And today's guest, Chris Yates, Ford's Chief Talent Officer, is on the forefront of those changes in talent and technology. Chris came to Ford from Microsoft, where he was instrumental in their global learning strategy and overall cultural development. At Ford, Chris is responsible for leading the charge in Ford's new overall global talent strategy, tech talent acquisition, accelerated team development, and company culture. We're going to get Chris's insight into the people side of tech, what we've accomplished, and what needs to be done as Ford leads the industry-wide transformation into the future. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Hey, great to be here. Nice to see you, Greg.
Pleasure to have you. Now, Chris, you've been in the talent business for a long time, and you've worked with several major corporations before coming to Ford. Could you walk us through some of the changes that you've seen in that time and how technology has transformed the basic process of talent acquisition and development?
Well, are you calling me old, Greg? That's a good place to start. No, I think where I'd go to is the whole democratization of data, quite honestly. If you go back to, in the lifetimes of most of us, and the whole area of recruitment and talent management, so much of it was limited to who you know, personal networks of each other, word of mouth, and sort of reputations. All of that's gone. I can find information about almost anybody on the planet a few clicks away. The data is available in a way it's ubiquitous as never before. We can find out what's going on in organizations as never before. And we can even talk about the reputation and the skills of individuals. So much of that is freely online right now. So to both understand the talent market, find people, for people to understand jobs, to think about the skills that are needed in particular roles, all of these things are ubiquitous. And that's part of the joy of, the whole fourth industrial revolution, everything being connected. And here we are. And that's applied into the talent world as much as anything else. So I think we're just in a very different world. It's rapidly evolving. And I think it's given much more power, this idea of empowerment, back to the applicants and back to the candidates in the process. It's not all in the ball game of the employer anymore.
Very true. And as you talk about sort of that transformation, Ford itself has been transforming itself from a car company to a tech company. And we do need the brightest, most disruptive minds on our team. How will Ford compete with leading tech organizations to attract top talent and create a culture where they can pursue their dreams?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're looking at first is how we tell our story. And in the HR colloquial speak, the words we use are things like employer brand or employer value proposition. But Ford's got an amazing story. Ford has been at the front of social change for over 100 years. Ford enabled the Great Migration from people from the South to come to Detroit. Ford created the $5, a living wage concept, the working week, and on and on and on. There's so many things that Ford did that kind of drove social change for the better, not just in America, but across the world. If you look at NASA and a lot of the big improvements, Ford's been behind that. So you could say we've always been big tech. We've always been big tech. And if you think about the problems that we're looking to solve today, I think we're trying to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. We're trying to solve issues of ecology, issues of transportation, issues of energy. And I think the challenge we're laying out to the tech community is you can go and look at a word processing and think, how do I get this font to be a better thing? or how do I, manipulate social data for commercial advantage, or you can come and save the planet and think about what does clean energy look like, and it's a choice. So I think we want to make that choice really clear. I think we need to be explicit about who we are, who we've always been, and the mission that everyone at Ford feels right now.
How do new technologies and ways of recruiting impact diversity, equity, and inclusion? Has it helped us address DE&I and foster change?
I hope that it's leveled the playing field. Going back to the access to data, it means that, again, we're not using personal networks. If I go back, so much of networking and recruitment, especially for the senior jobs in organizations, was done. Used to hear this thing, hey, will I hire a woman or someone of color or whatever, if I could find one. Yeah, well, you can find them. They're out there. It's easy to do a search and to find out who's best. There are organizations, there are people out there. Underrepresented groups are visible in a way they've never been before. And so it's no longer, I think, a lot of the traditional excuses that organizations might have used not to be diverse, not to hire in an equitable way, have gone. It's if you really want to find the candidate of your choice, it might take a little bit more effort, but the tools and the technology is there to enable that.
It's so true, and that new landscape is there for us and for the taking. On that note, you co-authored a book called Share about new business models, need for companies to compete in the digital world, and the age of sharing and cooperating. Can you talk a little bit about this shift and how Ford's global team has adapted?
Sure. I was inspired by one of the things I learned about, particularly at my time at Microsoft, was this whole idea of Conway's Law. And this is the idea that if you're going to build technology, the very essence of the organization building it has to be a reflection in some way of the thing that you want to build. At least that's my interpretation of it. But I was really inspired by that idea. There's a second big idea, which is if you look at the high streets of the world, or most of the major cities, once upon a time, the biggest buildings used to be the cathedrals, the palaces, with all of the guards, all of the security, and the common people couldn't get in. And those places are museums tourists go. If you look at the buildings that are big and powerful in most of the cities where the average citizen can't get in with the best security, it's the corporates. Yeah. So what accountability do corporates have to influence the world in so many things? And so a lot of what I was writing about was about this idea of empathy that needs to come. And one of the things in Ford, in our Ford Plus work, we've put absolutely at the heart is this concept of care. So really thinking about how do we, at the essence of how we do our transformation right now, demonstrate empathy, create psychological safety, because we know that's the best environment to drive innovation. Quite frankly, there's a ton of research that proves that. I don't need to go into here. I think that's just an honest truth that people know. If people feel comfortable and safe and cared for, you do your best work.
Speaking of adapting, the pandemic has had an impact on every aspect of business, with a heavy emphasis on face-to-face interactions when it comes to campus recruiting, or general interviews, internships, and mentoring. How did Ford adapt to change during the last year and a half?
I think we all adapted. One of the things that happened is we went through this digital experiment, which probably could have taken a decade, in saying, hey, we need to adopt digital practices. Most organizations, as Ford is one of the forefronts in here, it happened over a weekend. We decided on a Friday that we weren't coming back on Monday morning, and we adapted, didn't we? I think, interestingly, Ford has been at the forefront of a lot of the hybrid work practices. I know when I was working on the West Coast, we were actually benchmarking Ford and some of the Ford practices in terms of how to think about setting this up. So now we've got I think, a very flexible system. We're absolutely listening regularly to the needs of our employee base. We're increasingly hiring people from all over the world. I think one of the things that the pandemic's done has really opened up talent markets to people we might think unreachable at sometimes, because it's saying, hey, we can work with you in terms of where the location goes. I think the final thing I'd say about this, which has been interesting to me, is the degree of intimacy. I think we made a lot of assumptions that the office environment was the best environment. But if you think about the power games, the politics, the microaggressions, all of those things, when we used to sit in the offices. We used to get coaching about where to sit and how the bar centers and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot more intimate. I'm seeing into your room. There's some sort of surf picture behind you. You can see my dead plant
Floridian.
over my right shoulder. So, and there's a good chance some 11-year-old is going to come in and sort of photobomb the call right now, or
Right.
something happens, or a dog or a cat. And we're so much more human. We are so much more human than possibly we've ever been in our lives. And that's got to be a good thing.
It has become the norm, and it's something that has, like you said, over the course of a weekend, something that would have taken years to change, did make us have to take a good hard look. And I do feel like the adaptability that we've utilized has been wonderful. You said that at other companies, it's wonderful to hear that Ford is being used as the benchmark. Um, what power and responsibility do you think the large corporations have in society to enact change?
Oh, that's one of my soapbox. Let me talk for hours, but the 2-minute answer. Every aspect of our lives these days is driven by corporates. The quality of the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the media choices that we make. I could go on and on. Think of any aspect of your life, and it's being decided in a marketing team sprint, or a boardroom, or a commercial choice somewhere. And so, dependent on that, we have to have leaders who have integrity and care for society running this, or else bad things start to happen. And if I look at Ford, and it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about being at Ford, we have a history of putting people first, putting safety first. Care is embedded, I'll mention it again, into the way that we want to do the transformation. Um, and I think I look at our proposition, and that's one of the things to come on to, perhaps later. But if when we pull this thing off, in terms of being fully, um, realizing that move to battery electric vehicles, the scale of Ford, with the rich heritage we've got in terms of being in the transportation industries, means we can impact the world on a scale and as an influencer that I think no one else in the world has an opportunity to do.
And do you feel that impact has sort of set our future of what it's going to look like as far as the environmental impact and sustainability?
I hope so. That's kind of the point, isn't it? That it shouldn't be just something that comes from government regulators saying increasingly we want you to do that. If you look at the Ford family and how committed they've been through their time to this, and even down to some of the things that Henry Ford was doing right at the beginning of the company in terms of sustainability, the ability to recycle, alternative energy sources. I think it's something that's been in our DNA always. It's kind of part of our heritage.
It is part of our heritage, and Ford has been making a lot of strides globally when it comes to innovation and changing the perception of the way we work. Can you tell me about the importance of Ford Plus plan?
The Ford Plus plan is the heart of everything we're doing right now. It's really the kind of the accelerant to say, how do we get to be fully committed to be battery electric while maintaining the marquee, the amazing products that we have. So I think the opportunities for everyone at Ford, and everyone who wants to join us, to be committed to one plan, and having that clarity means we can really move fast.
It is true, and that movement is never so evident before us with the diversity of candidates and the innovation that we've been taking. If our people strategy goes according to plan, what will Ford look like in 2023 and beyond?
I think you're going to see a leaner, meaner, faster dynamic machine that is taking names in the industry. And honestly, I see us being the best. When you think of the electric vehicles or alternative vehicles of amazing customer service, Ford is going to be the benchmark company that you think of. I absolutely and fully believe that's where we'll be. And I think our stock price is going to be there accordingly, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. And there is obviously a shift that goes with it. I had a chance to drive a Mach E GT, and it absolutely blew my mind, and obviously made me a believer. For other Ford employees who want to embrace this shift and become more tech focused and more involved in the organization, what guidance can you share?
I think there's one phrase. I think be a participant, not an observer. I think that's the single most important thing. This is that there are points in your career, in your life, where something comes along and you go, that year, that period of time, that was the best team, that was the best organization, that was the time where I really felt my purpose was aligned to something big, and that the work I did make a difference. There's that little story of the person who's cleaning the floor, and someone says, "What are you doing?" They're saying, I'm putting someone on the moon, because I'm part of the NASA program. It feels like that at Ford right now. There's a buzz, there's an excitement about being here, about being committed. And I think the direct advice is be curious, ask questions, get involved, and learn. Don't wait for someone to come along and say, "Hey, you need to learn this." Be curious, find out, get the material, go online. I'll say it again, be a participant, not an observer. Get involved.
The future does certainly look bright, and the innovation that we do have does harken back to the early 1900s, and the groundswell that you talk about is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, there's something I visited towards the end of last year. I visited the Henry Ford in downtown Detroit. I was amazed. It's amazing. It's actually built as a testament to innovation, and not just that, it's a testament to disruptive innovation. And so you see that all the way through in the heritage of the company, that we've always been a company that said, I'm not just interested in following the pack, but we're going to make bold moves. And I think as I look at the whole history of this, has been the spurts where we've kind of done this. And I think a lot of people sometimes look at Ford and think, oh, there's this big old company. We've been around 100 years for a reason. And it's because there's something special in the DNA. And this is one of those spirits. This is one of those spirits I'd say get on board. It's amazing to be here right now.
Now it's time for this month's Tech Talk Q&A, where we ask those probing questions from our listeners for this month's speaker. Now, Chris, the first question that came in is, what kind of people is Ford looking for?
I think we are looking for disruptors. I think we are looking at people who are clearly brilliant, but also people who are not going to take no for an answer, not going to go quietly into the night and do something else, but who are going to be a little obsessive, a little, traditional, like hyper geeky, and are really motivated to do something big. So I think we're looking for the challengers, the disruptors, those who are on the edge, those who are really interested in looking back and saying, I did that, that kind of fire in the belly. I think those are the people we really want to attract to the brand and say, come here, help us make a difference, do something unique, do something that's going to make an impact in the world.
Absolutely. And that, what you just said, make an impact on the world, talking between, double to triple digits, numbers of people per day. That is exactly the number one reason what I get of why people want to come to Ford.
Yeah. I'd say the other thing, just to come out, is this idea of play. This idea that Ford is also being a good. So I think we want the tinkerers. Those people who, like, you've got a problem, there's something you can't figure out, and you've got to go, I'm going to pick at it, and pick at it, because I'm going to fix this thing. I think that's something else in our DNA, and I think we want to say, if that's you, come home. We're waiting for you.
Absolutely. And there's a word that you use that it's super exciting, but generally has a negative connotation, but you've kind of done a really great job of explaining how it's relative to Henry Ford, Ford's past, and technically Ford's future. That word's disruptive. What does disruptive mean in the landscape when looking for candidates?
Yeah, that's great. There's an analogy. Those who've worked with me know this. I call it the salt tasters in my life. So let's say you're walking along the street and Ford's this big house, and we invite you in and we say, hey, come and live with us. It's going to be great. And you sit down for the first meal with your new family, and you taste the food and you go, it's full of salt. I can't eat it. And you're like, hey, you'll get used to it. It's going to be fine. That's just the way we eat it. And you go, no. The reason you brought me in is it's full of salt, because you might be the only one who comes in to taste that salt because your taste buds are strong. And what do you do in that moment? Do you kind of imagine you're visiting for someone's family? Do you kind of go, well, I'll just go and cook my own meal.
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw all the plates on the floor. And maybe we want you to, because you know what, eating too much salt isn't good for us. And maybe sometimes at Ford we've been doing things the same way. So we want those people who've got acute taste buds, who are going to come in, who are going to disrupt, who are going to raise a hand and say, I taste something different. I smell something different. I want to draw your attention to it. I'm going to make a fuss, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to take it on me. And the reason we're bringing you into Ford is to do that. The reason we're bringing you in is to disrupt, is to say, make us better. Not just to disrupt Ford, but to disrupt the whole industry, to disrupt how we think
absolutely.
about movement of people, movement, and the associated technology that comes with, new methods of energy.
And it would be safe to say that a decent analogy is somebody who's not afraid to change the recipe. One other question that we did
I love
have
that. I'm going to
is,
use that now. Exactly.
yeah,
How do we cook without salt?
right, exactly.
I love that.
Another question that we did have come in is, what's Ford doing differently than the other large automakers?
Yeah, I think it's our commitment, quite honestly. If I look back, and again, I think we've been really humble in our past, but you look at the California emissions law, we didn't make a fuss about that, but we chose to do what I would say was the right thing, quite honestly. And again, I think we've made those choices quietly and without a fuss, in terms of our commitment to a greener way of doing things. I look at the Rouge and the way we've looked at source energy. I look at the plants we just announced in Tennessee and Kentucky and the commitment we've made there to alternative energy sources. So right, and that's a very Ford thing to do. Right from even how do we power the plant, much less the power connection, we're thinking alternatively about how we bring it. So it's that whole ecosystem. I think, we're one of those, we don't make a fuss about this stuff. So every time we do something, we don't kind of go, hey, we did something, but we're doing it day in, day out. And when you talk to anybody at Ford, again, it's that fire in that belly and it's part of the DNA.
Chris, one last question for you. When you think about the future of Ford, what's the thing that excites you the most?
Scale. Just the scale and impact. We have some of the biggest selling products in the world, the biggest selling products in America. When we convert to fully battery electric vehicles, when we make even the vehicles that continue to run on petrol and diesel even cleaner, our ability to scale and really influence the air that we breathe, the cleanliness of the environment, and then to be the company that everybody follows because of our scale is just impressive. I think we're unique in that. So as we change, the industry changes.
Chris, thank you for joining us and sharing your insight on the way Ford is focusing on talent, technology, and sustainability. It has been a true pleasure to sit down with you and have a chat.
My pleasure, and everyone stay safe out there.
To learn more about careers at Ford and the way they think about the future of mobility, visit www.careers.ford.com. If you are interested in additional opportunities to join the Ford family or to stay up to date on Ford Tech Talks, please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn at Ford Motor Company or email techtalks@ford.com for more information. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.